Hello, welcome to Paint by Blunders. Today we're looking at bronze, more specifically bronze for your statues or terrain pieces, but equally this could work on your miniatures for their armour or anything like that. No oils from me today, this is going to be all acrylics, all super simple. Now, if you're new to the channel and like what you're seeing, please do consider subscribing, giving us a thumbs up and commenting below if you've got any tips or tricks for anyone else who watches this video who might benefit from them. Now, let's get to the video. So this is our starting position. For primer, all I've done is airbrush it black. I then did like a zenithal with grey and white. You don't have to do that. Essentially, I was doing a glary airbrush review, and this was one of the models that I used to demonstrate what it could do. So first up, Incubi Darkness by Citadel. We're just trying to get colour all over the model. I'm not worried too much about it being even or being really opaque, because any of those thinner sections where the white is sort of grinning through, it just adds to a little bit of depth, texture, contrast to essentially what is going to be a bit of terrain. So with the Incubi Darkness done, I'm going to be applying my first highlight. For this, I'm going to be using Pro Acrylic Jade. It's not essential to use Pro Acrylic Jade. You can use any sort of greedy blue, that it just complements the Incubi Darkness. And I'm going to be applying this with a sponge, more specifically a sea sponge. Now, as you can see, these come in a variety of shapes and sizes, which is one of the reasons why I love them, because you can get a different sort of stippling profile with whatever one you choose to use. And they're fairly cheap and they last ages if you look after them. So I'm going to be using this sort of medium sized one, and I just want to show you how I thin down the paint. Now, you don't have to thin it down, you could use it, you know, straight out the pot, but I like a damp sponge and a fairly thinned down paint, and that's just because I want to be able to keep going around adding this stippling and have it brighter in certain sections. And you know, where I'm stippling it and it's hitting a previous layer that's dry, that's just gonna, you know, strengthen that opacity, and it's just gonna add more tonal variation. And it's super easy, you're just going around, just dabbing the sponge around. Doesn't have to be perfect, and anywhere the sponge sort of can't get to, you can either use the more smaller sponges that you might use for your, you know, your miniatures or your marines, or you can just tear a small bit off one of these. As I say, they're really robust and they last ages. I'll add a link into the description of like a cheap pack of sea sponges, but I highly recommend investing in them. So I'm going around again, doing the exact same stippling, but with a slightly thicker paint. Now, if you didn't want to do the watery, you know, initial coat, you could jump straight to this. But as I say, I like building it up and adding, you know, some really nice different layers tonally, and you know how opaque the layers are. And honestly, this is adding a minute to the painting process, because you can always just give them a quick blast with a hairdryer to speed this process up. So our final highlight now is Blue Green from Vallejo. You don't have to use this. Again, you can just knock up a nice contrasting colour that fits. You could use Gorse Blaster Green from GW, or the Oxide paint would also work. And again, we're just going around stippling it, catching some nice edges and any of the details, you know, that we want to show off. Again, this is going to be covered in a lot of metallic, but I also wanted to show you how lovely this looks. So you don't have to cover it in metallic paint. You could just have it looking like a nice Verdigris sort of bronzy statue without any of the metallic showing through. So I wanted to pick out a few details to have it just look a bit more interesting and draw the eye. So I'm going to pick the sword and the halo, and I'm going to be using Golden's Iridescent Bronze. It reads pretty much as gold in my opinion. Golden, if you don't know them, normally do heavy bodied acrylics. We use them at work all the time. They are fantastic, but you do have to be careful as they are quite thick. And I'm just going to be putting a couple of coats on, just trying to be careful of what we've done. Completely optional. Do this any which way you like. So with that done, I just wanted to show you how you could leave it here and how, in my opinion, it looks great. Super weathered, lots of verdigris, lots of nice loveliness. But I want to make this look a bit more bronzy, so I'm going to be using Pro Acrylic Bronze and a large dry brush. The lovely thing about this is you can choose just how much you want to dry brush it. You can have it very light, or you can absolutely go to town on it. It will just yield different effects, and it's just a case of experimenting and finding what way you want to do it for the desired look you want. I would say I'm going to do a fairly medium dry brush. I know that sounds really lame, but it's not too light and not too heavy. I think it looks really effective and pretty realistic, if I'm honest. And whereas normally you would dry brush just following the direction of the sort of the raised edges you're trying to catch, where I'm doing lots of flat surfaces and lots of like the robe, etc., I'm going to be using lots of circular motions as well, just trying to blend it in over the top of where we do all that sponge work, so that it has a nice gentle gradient at some of the areas where you can see that stippling sort of bleed through. And once all of those dry brushing bits are done, 3, 2, 1, and this is our end result. What you can do, and what I did, is take my top highlight, which was the blue-green, made a almost wash consistency out of it, and I just picked out a few creases and edges that I wanted to show off some more. So as you can see, probably just around the eyes and a few bits on the wings. It's not essential, it's just in case you go over anything with the bronze that you really want to show off. There are lots of ways you could take this further. If you wanted to, you could do a lighter bronze / silvery highlight. But for this was about doing it quickly and effectively. And I feel we've achieved that with this. Thank you again for checking out the video. If you haven't already, do consider subscribing, liking, commenting, sharing, all those lovely things, because it really does help me out. And hopefully I'll see you on the next one.